Throughout history, women were usually considered inferior to men. This was true when Europeans started settling in the Americas, especially in the English colonies. The rights and freedoms that women had in the colonial era were based largely on their culture and where they lived.
One of the groups settled in America were the Native Americans. They gave their women as many rights as men had. The women and men were both allowed to request divorce. Independence was not lost when they married. Both genders did what they had to survive. When married, the man and woman moved in with the wife's family because kinship ties were more important than the bond between husband and wife. These ways of treating women never changed as time went on, and like it did in more culturally advanced societies.
In England, strict laws were made about women's rights that were implemented not only in England but also in the English colonies. This was called the English common law. It stated the husband plus the wife equals one person by law, the husband. Once a woman got married, her status became femme covert, which meant that her identity was covered and protected by her husband. This process was called coverture. The husband controlled all of the land, businesses, and money for the woman, and she was not allowed to own any of it. Any money the woman earned was controlled by the husband, and any debts she acquired would be paid by the husband. Also, women weren't allowed in court without their husband's consent, and women weren't allowed to testify. The husband had the right to everything the wife owned. Women were considered to be inferior to men, and upon marriage, women lost all of their legal independence.
When a woman's husband died, she regained her femme sole status. The widow typically received 1/3 of her husband's personal estate, which included furnishings, tools, and livestock, but not the house or land. However, sometimes the husband would choose to write a will that gave more than 1/3 to his wife, but this was usually not the case. During her lifetime, the widow would receive the use of the land and house. However, when she died, her children inherited the land. In other cases, widows would have the power to own the husband's property after his death. They could also collect rents, own shops, and have a standing in court, which are not things that they could do while their husband was still alive.
Some colonies had exceptions to the strict treatment of women. When the Dutch settled in the Americas, the women there were treated with more respect. Per Dutch instruction, the husband and wife were equal partners. Women could own property in their own names and run businesses. When the British took over, though, things changed and became more strict. Originally, Maryland and Virginia were comprised of more men than women. A majority of the women had arrived without freedom and bound to an owner. These ladies were not allowed to marry until they completed their terms of service. A lot of women died because of the unhealthy environment. The lack of women and low death rates meant that many widows remarried. Despite knowing that the wives will marry again, the men left the women a lot more than 1/3 of their share and trusted them to take care of property. As the colonies developed more and more, though, freedom for the women were pushed back.
Finally, around the time of the American Revolution, some women began to think about the meaning of true freedom and independence. However, it was not until the time of the Industrial Revolution when acts like the Married Women's Act were passed. Women soon began to have the power to sue and divorce their husbands and enter professions such as law.